My name is Adesokan. I lead a sales team at a firm, and I'm here in Chicago. I spent the first 13 years of my life living in Lagos, Nigeria. My family moved to the U.S. when I was 13. Lived in a suburb about 30, 40 minutes south of the city. So this was, roughly about 20 years ago now. So I was able to come to college in the city. My dad always worked in the city, so it was like the escape from the suburbs for us. So I always had a desire, like, listen, there's got to be more to life than living in the burbs. So once I came to school in the city, I fell in love, and I just never moved back. And I don't see a world where I don't live in a large city. I am a manager for a mid-market sales team at a fintech company called The Firm. I lead a partnerships team, so ultimately I have a team of anywhere between 8 to 12 account executives at any time. Ultimately tasked with securing partnerships with e-commerce retailers as well as big box stores to offer a buy now, pay later financing essentially for their consumers. I love the industry. I love the people that I work with. I love the autonomy that it affords me. I really love the autonomy it affords me in being able to find creative ways to provide a solution, for a merchant. So those are things I really like about it.
Do you have your phone on you?
I do.
Tell us how many unread messages you have.
Just 5 notifications right now. I mean, on my email, my mailbox, in my inbox, that's a different story, right? Because there are a number of emails that come in that are just automated, right? So these are gonna come in at a particular time every day, sometimes even Saturday or Sundays, and may not be the most pertinent information for my day to day. So those I typically don't do a great job of clearing out. But obviously I ensure to prioritize, things that I need to be responsible for. Anytime anyone on our large sales team closes a deal, there's a ring-a-ding email that goes out, obviously celebrating, those partnerships. So I do get several of those, and to follow them are, congratulatory remarks from, colleagues saying, great job. So that also obviously adds to the thread. I think sales development and business development, for the most part, I think are the same thing. I've always felt sales development and business development where folks so sales development is usually for us the person who's doing the outbound reaching out to identify potential, ideal candidate merchants that we can work with. And business development, I feel, is more of the inbounds of, these opportunities coming in, they field it, and then they qualify it and assign it, accordingly. So I wouldn't say I'm either, to be frank with you, but I have been a business development / sales development manager in the past. The folks that I've come across over the course of my career they span the gamut, right? You can be a salesperson and be an introvert. You can be more analytical in terms of the way you think through things, and you don't necessarily need to be an extrovert. So from where I sit, I think just being a problem solver, having great critical thinking skills, those and obviously personal the ability to form relations with people and have strong communication, I think obviously also play a huge role. So yeah, I would line it up that way. So I would say being a great communicator, problem solving, and critical thinking skills. I think are skills that one can achieve success in this role. The problem solving piece especially are things that are very, very important to me. But by and large, I think for you to be a problem solver, you have to have a natural curiosity of why does this thing work this way, and is there a way that we can make it work better, or can we enhance it, or is this flawed? You know what I mean? So if you don't have that level of curiosity to identify an opportunity to optimize something, then how do you solve a problem that you don't even know exists? Biggest challenge probably on a day-to-day basis for the team would be more operational. We have a number of systems and tech stacks that we need to be able to use efficiently in order to really do our jobs, right? Which is secure merchant partnerships. So I would say that piece, just because we partner with a lot of cross-functional teams, the legal teams, our merchant risk teams. So we work collaboratively with a number of teams, and sometimes obviously we are ready to go. We want something done, right now, and sometimes you just gotta wait. Sales process for us is usually the first encounter with a prospective merchant would be a discovery call. But that process obviously begins before that discovery call, right? You're doing your research ahead of time to get a better understanding of this particular merchant, what their needs are, what their needs may be, maybe things that you might have gleaned from them or about them online somewhere else that you kind of come into that meeting armed with. Ultimately being able to come into a meeting knowing something about a business, I feel always puts you in the best position to win that deal, because they're invested in you because you took the time to learn something about them. So would be that discovery call where you identify what problems they're looking to solve. Obviously, we share our solution and how we work. And then from there, we look at what next steps looks like, right? Ultimately, if there's no if there's nothing that's barring us from moving forward, then we're always looking to see, okay, what's the next step and how can we secure a partnership for you guys by this date or this quarter or this month. Ultimately, folks want to be responsive. They'll be responsive to you. I think I'm thankful that we offer a product that is it's an excellent solution. It works very, very well, and as a result, we probably win more deals than we lose. A lot of the folks we're looking to reach are being bombarded with messaging from us as well as our competition. So how do you determine as a stakeholder, right? How do you determine which product makes sense for you or which email you even want to engage with? So to that, I'll say those challenges I don't think are really ever going anywhere. Ultimately, folks are gonna wake up in the morning, they're gonna look at their emails, and they're gonna respond to what they choose to, maybe what calls itself out to them more than the messaging that seems more like obviously a spray and pray approach. I would say even more so now in our pandemic state than before, right? At least in the past, I'm in the office. I'm here. So that I'm here. And now, obviously, being at home, there's this need of, okay, I want to show that I'm doing my work, and there's this need to always be very, very responsive whenever someone's looking for you to provide a direction or answer somewhere. So yeah, I mean, I would say between notifications I get from photos of my kids at school, from from coworkers, from LinkedIn, to your point, Instagram, text messages, my personal life as well. Like, yeah, I have 4 mailboxes, and only one of them is for work. I usually like to start my day with prioritizing the things I need to get done, like P1, P2, P3. It's also a practice that like our team uses when they're looking at their accounts to determine like where they rank them. And then I'll just align my day that way. And I typically try to start the day off with the most challenging thing, because it's downhill from there. You check that box and you're on to the next. The things that comes in front of me that I can solve for in a matter of minutes, I'll do it right away. Stuff that comes in front of me that requires a little bit more time, a little bit more research, a little bit more thinking, maybe reaching out to folks cross-functionally to figure out the best way to resolve it, I'll make time for that, and then I'll tackle it at that point. So one of the recent practices I actually started to do was I literally block out at least 1 hour each day. It's like literally a stand-in, a recurring meeting each day. It's something my wife talked about. She's like, "Nee, like you literally don't eat when you work from home. Like you're going from meeting to the other, one meeting to the other." So I block out that time just to eat, and also to then tackle those tasks that I just mentioned earlier, where maybe I require a little bit more time to get through it. One of the guys on my team is really, really, really creative about the way he reaches out and engages to prospects. He does it in a very conversational way. Obviously an account executive with some years of experience. So, I feel confident in his ability to deliver those messages in a way that's, it's concise, succinct, and it also drives the likelihood of us getting a response. Now, am I that comfortable or confident in having someone with maybe less experience, or maybe our business development team sending those types of messages? I'm unsure, but thus far, I mean, it works for them, because that message looks a lot different than what that particular stakeholder is receiving from others on a day to day. I can sit there, look at account lists. I can look at a merchant's profile, look at their website, look at their demographics, and feel like these folks would really, really benefit from a partnership with us, right? But the question is, how do we get this information in front of them? Our space currently in the buy now pay later space is, it's growing incredibly, right? So for them, not being able to identify what might be the best product for them, or what might be the best partner for them based on their product offering. I mean, it's a challenge because once we get them to the table and kind of have that dialogue, and we're able to educate them a little bit on what our key differences are from the competitors, at that point it's usually okay. This makes perfect sense. But again, just that ability to actually have that first meeting to engage with them, that obviously that therein lies our biggest challenge. You think back to 3 years ago, I was I wasn't a father yet, right? So my single sole focus as an account executive, at least at that time, was closing opportunities for myself, worrying about my book of business, my accounts, and obviously my wife as well, considering working out, gym, whatever the things are that I practice on a day to day that help me function. Now with 3-year-old twins and and a 1-year old, leading a team now, you just can only imagine how much more I essentially tackle on a day to day. So that list for sure has grown with more responsibility, and I'm confident that obviously as I continue to ascend in my career, that's just not ever gonna get less. What's interesting is whenever I'm talking to friends that they're having their first kid, I find myself, obviously wishing them the best, and trying to ultimately, let them set with them expectations, how challenging this could be. But the fact is, having twins there's nothing like it. It's so much more challenging than just than having one child. Don't get me wrong, having a kid by themselves are it's a lot of work, but twins, whew. I remember one of the first things that my hiring manager, talked to me about when I first started at a firm was, okay, Nee, you're tasked with leading this team, and you help the team get to that number, right? So you need to be an integral part of it. In addition to that, at the start, I also worked in a player coach function. So ultimately, I was tied to a book of business. I was tied to a number. It was just a bit of a discounted one because the idea being the entirety of the quota of the team rolled up to me. So helping folks obviously close deals also was to the benefit of our overall team goal. So yeah, to answer that, I would say it's been I don't actually like lead calls like myself anymore, unless I'm just looking to qualify an account and then maybe pass it off to someone else on my team. But as far as literally like sitting in on calls with my account executives, stepping in to answer questions and provide clarity where it's needed, that's still a part of my day to day. It's interesting. I think like some people think that, well, Nee, this is easy. Like you're like a bank. You offer people like money. Like this can't be a hard job to do. You know what I mean? But obviously they're not thinking about the complexity of of being integrated with a totally separate entity. With revenue being a huge part of what really drives that relationship and that partnership. I'd say the thing that probably keeps me up the most is our competition, right? Our competition, some of which are international at this point, right? So, for us, we're obviously expanding there as well, most recently in Canada. But for us, we don't necessarily have the same reach as the competition currently. So whenever I'm, engaging with a merchant who sells internationally and they want one solution for all of their e-commerce, sites and platforms, that puts us at a tough spot. Even though we know that our benefit and the return with partnering with us is far greater. Folks just want some level of they just want to have one solution. It's easier for them. And I would say, secondly, as far as again with competition, there are certain verticals within the business with which we thrive and do very, very well in. And then conversely, there may be other verticals that we have room to grow. We have opportunities to grow, and in some of those areas, maybe our competition is already there, or maybe their product fit is stronger in one area where ours isn't, and vice versa. If that makes sense. I wouldn't say that competition in the sense of, obviously as I've grown older, I wouldn't say I'm not competitive with, necessarily like trying to like beat another person at work, or achieve a greater success than this person. My definition of being competitive is with myself, right? The name of the game is to wake up every day and be a better version of myself today than I was yesterday. And if I could do that successfully, regardless of what the person next to me is doing, then that's a win. You do have to be competitive, regardless of if it's an outward competition where you're speaking it out, or or maybe you're not like obviously going out of your way to like root for someone else's downfall. That thankfully has never been a part of any sales culture I've been a part of. But the fact is, we're all tied to a number. There's a dashboard. There's a list, and folks in sales typically want to see their names at the top of that list. Just again thinking through things operationally, right? We have, as I mentioned earlier, we have these tech stacks, and we have a a very very integrated system that we use when we're presenting proposals to our prospective merchant partners. And a lot of that is just tied to the fact that our finance teams and other cross-functional partners really need to have visibility into what a partnership like this means for our company down the line. So those things are very very detail oriented. So for us, we get the ball rolling on something like that, and then maybe the merchant comes back and say, "Hey, wait, I have a question about this. Oh, wait, can I change that instead?" And this spans from if it's the product that we're offering them to, well, I want to make a change to this clause in our legal agreement. Can you guys do that? And obviously, again, just for us to do those things, we'd have to tap the shoulders of the folks who those functions live with. And there's some sales folks who are like, I want this thing done today. I want it done right now. And the fact is, as the way we all work, it's obviously going to get done. But ultimately, just the slow up with folks on the team saying like, "Yeah, I really need this done now, and how can we accelerate the process?" So those things I might say might be a bit of a challenge, but nothing that gets in the way of us being able to get what we need to do done in the month or in the quarter. Years ago, I for sure was very impatient, and if you ask my wife that, she'll probably say I could still work on it a little bit. But again, having young kids who don't have a clue, what you have to do today that's so urgent, and not have that perspective, I think definitely challenges me to be more patient. And I also think to be a leader, you absolutely have to be patient. As a person, you have to be able to understand where the folks that you're tasked with leading are coming from. You have to be able to empathize with what they're facing, what they're seeing, and ultimately, it's easier for me to do now because I've been in those seats. So I literally can feel, what they feel, and find the right direction to hopefully alleviate their concerns. Our sales org is separated across a number of segments, right? The mid market segment, which depending on who you're talking to, could also be SMB, which is the segment of the team that I lead. Next up is the strategic brands, which is probably our mid market segment in another industry or with another company. Then obviously we have our enterprise accounts. So obviously seeing the young guys come in, a lot of times they're aspiring for to be an enterprise deal winner. So for them, they're looking at the larger partnerships that some of the folks on that team is closing, and they want to close deals of that size, and they want to do it now to obviously accelerate their careers, which I get, right? But the fact remains is those things come with time. It's something I always coach to. It comes with time. The experiences that you're getting on a day-to-day with maybe deals that are worth a little bit less, ultimately those practices, processes that you put in, the challenges that you navigate, the adversity, the obstacles, ultimately are the skills that you're going to need once you do get to the more enterprise size sales. So just enjoy the ride, right? Just enjoy it, and know that the work that you're doing every day is setting you up for your next role. I remember a piece of feedback that a director gave me in a previous role, a previous company was, you just look at it this way, right? Every day you come to work, you're interviewing for your next job. Our overwhelming value prop that we have, over our competition is, we're a very transparent company, as far as, figures, as far as rates, as far as, the cost of our product, what that would be to a merchant, what it would be to their consumers. Those things are very, very well spelled out. Further, and obviously I want to just stick with that one thing. But that transparency is then tied to a number of other areas, right? As far as the value that our product also drives, you know, if that was something that I could get a bat sign out and we can share for the world to see and have our competitors do the same, it'd be much easier to sell. One of the KPIs that my team take heed to delivering on a week-to-week basis is just ensuring that we have at least 50 touch points on a weekly basis with prospects, with merchants that we're working with. So 50 touch points on a week-over-week basis. And I can't say that those are 50 emails, right? It could be a phone call for the touch point, right? It could be a meeting for the touch point. It could be a response to a thread of 3, 4, 5 emails, and there would essentially count as multiple touch points. So just the activity, engaging with merchant prospects is really what we ask for, because as mentioned earlier, like that's where those learnings come from, right? For you to be able to know how to sell complex deals, you need to put yourself in that position, and you actually have to just work some deals to find one or two complex ones. Starting off as a more junior level account executive, anyone would tell you, obviously, as part of sales, there's typically, it varies, right? But there's typically like a 50-50 split between, salary and your commission, your earning potential. And starting off, those numbers were lower. So the only way that I thought to make up that difference, obviously, was to be the top salesperson on the team, which meant again, not having a family. My wife would tell you, which meant I was going into the office on Saturdays sometimes. Sometimes going on Sundays. I would work at home on the weekends. I would fly out on a Sunday for a market visit with prospects so that I can meet more people over the course of a work week, fly back on late Friday. And a lot of my peers were leaving on Monday so that they would work Tuesday through Thursday and leave Friday. I just really wanted an opportunity uh, to give myself as many opportunities to be successful, as many chances at bat. And obviously now, a larger team, there's so many more deals that the team is working that I don't also feel that need to, like, don't get me wrong, my competitive nature wants to win deals, but I also don't feel that need to like win every single one of them. And the ones that we don't win, the key thing is just taking some learnings from it. For me, I know that the account execs on my team, they're more closely connected to that. So how they cope with it, I feel like I always find that to be most important, right? To ensure that they engage, that they're not too disappointed. uh, but the best way to cope with it is just looking at it and saying, like, did we do everything we could here? And if so, we have to be comfortable walking away from it. And I don't mean to just toot the horn about how great our product is, but if we've done everything we needed to do to convey our value to a prospective merchant, and they decide to go in another direction, and we know that we're the strong product fit in that vertical, a lot of times the take on it is like, well, they'll be back. I think the drive comes from being, being born to an immigrant family, right? Living the first, 13 years of my life in Lagos, Nigeria, understanding how hard my parents worked for me and my siblings to get to where we are today. My dad at 21 years old basically moved from a very, very rural part of Nigeria to the city, worked at a bank for a couple of years, saved enough money to go to London, went to school to be an accountant, came back and, did well for himself, met my mom, started a family. And then just like that, they saw that there was an opportunity for, their children to have a better education than what was being at the time offered in Nigeria. And they picked their whole life up. So for me, now as an adult, I can understand a little bit more, right? For someone to pick up everything and everyone that they've known and just leave all of that to this strange place and still build a life. I think that's where the drive comes from. It's a common joke folks say all the time. Being born to a Nigerian parent, that you only have three career paths that will make them happy. You either have to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. My wife opted to be the lawyer. I'm the sales guy. What I was doing for work before the kids is just not something that's sustainable. I can't do that with a family life, and in transparent. I mean, and to be candid, even at the time without children, working that hard and working that often without taking any time off or setting boundaries, I'm sure it impacted our relationship at that time as well. So those are things that I just don't want to have to navigate on top of work as well. Every month, every quarter, that dial goes back to zero. You know, there's a running joke from my SVP of sales where we say one of his favorite quotes is, "What have you done for me lately?" So for sure that is. But being a part of a company that really encourages you to take time off. We have flex time off where you can take as much time as you need. They're very, very understanding of that, and particularly within our sales and commercial org, it's almost almost everyone knows that at the end of the quarter, you at this point can take a week off for work to go relax, enjoy yourself, and that's something that the entire leadership team supports, and they're also doing some of the same. So I always find like taking that time off allows you to come back, re-engage, re-energize to do it again. Salesforce ultimately it's the single source of truth, right? It's where everything lives. And part of why I always encourage the team to ensure that their Salesforce hygiene is completely thorough. It's completely accurate, because that's what tells the story, right? It's what we use when we want to identify, is there a problem somewhere, or where exactly is it? Let's pull a report. Obviously, you can get all the data there, and that data is always going to tell you a story, to hopefully then correct it. So it's just something I use every day. If I don't see an immediate need for that product to benefit me, I'm probably gonna disregard it, and hope that it falls into the hands of someone else. Face to face, you can read the room. You can read body language. Your self-awareness is something that can absolutely propel you to understand what maybe what different stakeholders are seeing, that maybe you can clear up for them, that might end up being something that gets in the way of this deal down the line. Got flying around here, so but no, I think those things are. I think it has a great benefit. Obviously, I just don't know if it's not going to someone on their mobile, which is really what we use a lot of the day. I don't know if it'll convert as high on the desktop. There's some industries where, listen, if you're not in front of someone shaking their hand, you're not getting a deal done. And there's some where the likelihood of getting all decision makers in a room together to meet with you is probably slim to none. So that then puts those two at parity, I feel. It would definitely have to be industry specific. And I'm saying that solely because I've worked in roles where being in person was something that was necessary, almost necessary to be successful. And also worked in roles where it wasn't a game changer. One of the things that I typically do is, going into a call, looking to have my camera on so I can engage with the prospect. But if there are also times where they turn their cameras off, which probably to me means that they don't really want to engage that way. So 50-50. Sometimes I keep the camera on and just go through with it. Sometimes obviously it proves a bit awkward when you're sitting there staring at a blank screen. So I also mimic, my screen turned off just as theirs. Camera turned off, that is. I would probably say the biggest pet peeve for me would be someone reaching out to me and what they're offering is something that I have absolutely no use for, which means that they didn't do a thorough job of qualifying if we're an ideal candidate profile for them. So that will probably be the largest one. Means they didn't even try to learn a little bit about our business. Data and analytics, cloud provider reaches out, and they're trying to sell me on what their product does differently from others. And I'm seeing there in the tagline for the email that basically I just got roped in to a thread and I wasn't really the person they're looking to contact, but looking to connect with someone on the product and analytics team. Again, there's an instance of not really doing the research because I'm not the person that makes those decisions, so I'm not the ideal point of contact. I can say that when folks do reach out with the videos or short messages, like those stick out. And I probably do respond to more of those because they're customized. There's a bit of injected humor in there. There's a bit of, trying to, really, really, connect with you on a human level. Those I would typically respond to. And even if I'm still saying no, it would just be me, taking my hat off to the ingenuity that the BDA used to connect with me. One of my working theories is that the harder I work, the luckier I get. And something that I share with the team is like, just try to get in front of as many people as you can, and a little bit of luck will get you the rest of the way. For me and my wife growing up, as our relationship with our folks was more of you're talking about folks that were coming. It was all about survival, right? It was like survival was the sole being of their everyday, like making sure that they make it through the day, they get their children through school, through life, and navigate that. And the fact is, those survival needs are not things that like my wife and I have to like live our life by at this point. We're doing well. So just to, I would just want to be sure that like my kids, whatever they decide to do with their lives, their future, professional career, whatever that looks like, it's just got to be things that make them happy, and not necessarily something driven by achieving or by having like this society's label of what success looks like make X amount of dollars, or you should be in this title. Like, I don't want those things to be what ultimately drives them. And the fact is, we've done well enough that they kind of don't have to, which could be a good and a bad thing. So Affirm is buy now, pay later provider in a space, founded by Max Levchin, who was one of the co-founders of PayPal, so has a lot of experience in the payment space. So we help consumers say yes to their purchases by offering them a transparent solution to pay over time for purchases, items that they want now. I don't get an email from from a company offering me a product and think that they really want to help me do well. Quite naturally, they want to help themselves do well. They want to hit a number, right? But I do think that changes with education. So when you're reaching out to someone and maybe you're sharing your value proposition, just throwing some nuggets here and there, I found that over time, when folks start to read this and see this, then that's what helps them understand that, the idea is that a partnership with us would be mutually beneficial. And that's something that I'm always transparent about sharing up front is, this is a mutually beneficial partnership. So, couple messages on LinkedIn, a calendar reminder for my next meeting. And someone sent me an Instagram post. Nike, Starbucks hit me up. Yeah, and CNN News. And I get this emails all the time. And this is how you know that this isn't a good one, is because this particular email or this person reaches out to me fairly consistently for like the last year. I still don't know what they're selling, by the way. You want me to read it out?
Yeah, let's hear it. I'd love to.
Great. Hi, Nee. With Q4 knocking on the door, many of our clients are asking for more information about our permanent placement business to assist in filling the remaining open 2021 headcount. Did you know that we place full-time candidates at all levels, from junior to mid-level to director and above? If you're one of the many companies competing for talent in this tight labor market, consider offering freelance to full-time to help you attract more candidates while minimizing the potential fallout of a poor fit. Below are some of the recent full-time roles we filled. Copywriter, there's a bullet points now. Copywriters, digital designer, social media manager, project manager, production artist, UX designer. Which full-time roles can we help fill on your team in this candidate tight market? God, he used that candidate tight market one a few times. So obviously this looks like, a recruiting agency. And none of the roles that were bulleted here are roles that I hire for. The folks on my team that are, reaching out, they're offering more tailored messages to the folks that they're trying to get in front of. Even if it's not tailored to the particular person, it's tailored to like a segment of the business, or it's tailored to this vertical. You know what I mean? Just using an example for one of the guys on my team, I'll shout out Mark if this something he ever sees. It's someone that takes his time. He does research, and lucky for him, he's on the fashion vertical. He's a very stylish guy, so he's very, very knowledgeable in the fashion space. So the way that he'll message potential fashion prospect, merchant rather, is just something that it's gonna resonate with them. It'll identify the fact that I saw you watching this particular Rolex watch in this photo, because he knows watches. So when you start to draw those types of connections in the message, folks are gonna respond. So I'm partnered with a recruiter internally here at a firm. So obviously applications come in. So it's a mix of myself, reaching out to folks in my network, referrals obviously coming in, our recruiter taking a look at candidates that she thinks are a great fit, and then what I do is typically have like a hiring manager screen with them just to get an understanding of what they've been doing recently, see if there's a fit. Before we even move into like interview stages, just like the resume looking appealing enough for us to see if it warrants a call as is always the starting stage. Lucky for me, actually, one of the more tenured and successful account executives on my team recently is now a lead. So he's now helping with obviously some of that, sourcing those folks in the early stages before then bringing it to the broader leadership team to assess their skill set. So if I can go back to my younger self, would be, just have confidence in the value of the product. I would just tell myself, go out, just have confidence in the value of the product that you offer, and know that that in and of itself would be enough to help you win. Uh, yeah, so that would be the best piece of advice I would give myself is just don't place these, unrealistic expectations of yourself to close every single deal. Be comfortable losing because the deals that I lose are the ones that I learn from. I never would learn from the wins. Probably just to add to my last response, which I actually derived of a quote from Nelson Mandela, which is I never lose. I either win or I learn, and that's just the way that I approach life.